My name is Josh Madoff. I was a performer, and now I'm a composer for film and television. I'd like to show you how I use my Osmose. The Osmose is an MPE gestural synthesizer. The first thing I want to show you is just how sensitive it is. So right now the sensitivity is set to regular. I'm going to bump it up to extreme, and then go beyond extreme to what I like to call psychotic sensitivity. If you see this dot here, I barely touch it with the weight of a feather. It feels like it's reading my mind. Often when I'm playing, I'll hear a note before I knew I wanted to play it. It's also independent per key, so it's tracking up and down and left to right per key. Now let's talk about aftertouch and gestures. You'll notice when you push down the key about halfway, you hit this cushion. And beyond that, it engages aftertouch, which is going to do something different for each preset, each of the 500 internal presets. And just like all of the other gestures, it's completely independent per key. This is a gestural synth, meaning if I play with a short attack, I get one sound. If I play with a gentle attack, then I get a different sound. And if I use the aftertouch, I get a third sound. And I'm not limited to using one or the other. I can play them both simultaneously. You can even try to get creative with one hand and use aftertouch and a short attack. Let's talk about the pitch bend settings now. So personally, if I'd like to have a very natural sounding pitch bend that would emulate something like a really excellent violinist or a woodwind player, I just set it to 2/3 of a semitone. With a bit of practice, you can get a very musical, natural, vibrato, very nice vibrato, very elegant. However, this takes a lot of practice, so if your wiggle is a little wider than that, you can go to a half of a semitone, a quarter step, and you can wiggle it more violently and it still sounds pretty. Or you can go all the way down to a quarter semitone, an eighth step, and you can basically wiggle as violently as you want. And at this setting, it's impossible not to make it sound pretty. And just like the pressure glide, I can set it all the way up to 96 steps. However, unlike the pressure glide, now it's unique, so I can do as many 96-step glides as I want, and it gets pretty crazy pretty quick. The next feature I'd like to show you is completely unique in the world to this instrument. It's called an MPE arpeggiator. So, normal arpeggiator, you play 4 notes, it arpeggiates 4 notes, dynamics are done. If you're lucky, it grabbed a different initial dynamic for each key press. The first big difference is its tracking individually, dynamics per key, and not just dynamics up to down, but also left to right pitch shifts, which allows for really creative and musical performances. Very intuitive. And it's so sensitive that I can actually subtly change the rhythm and make really interesting polyrhythms by playing a note that's so quiet you can't hear it. It's a very bizarre experience to describe. I feel like I'm almost playing classical piano with gestures. But I'm controlling a giant arpeggiated synth. Next feature I'd like to show you is called pressure glide. You've actually been hearing it in a lot of the sounds I played for you, just very invisibly, subtly, and musically. What pressure glide is you set a minimum interval. In this case, it's set to 2 semitones. Anything that interval or less is going to glide between 2 notes based on relative pressure. Anything greater than that interval will not engage the pressure glide, but I'm not limited to one glide. As wide as I can open my hands as many times as I can reach higher than this interval, I can get multiple glides in any direction. You can use it in very subtle and musical ways like this. Here's an example of how you can use the pressure glide in a much more extreme manner. If you set the interval larger to a major 7th, now I'm free to play an octave. If I play less than an octave, major 7th or less, it's going to engage the pressure glide. But it's anything like that or less, so I can do a half-step glide, whole step glide, or anything bigger. All the way into a major 7th. And of course, you can max it out to full keyboard. In this case, it's actually 96 steps, and this is a very intelligent octave switcher, so I go to the very lowest note. Whatever is being preserved by playing it or using a pedal is going to stay the same, and as I jump up octaves, I'll go almost to the last octave. I can do giant glides up to 96 steps. Now I'd like to show you how all of the controls work within the internal sound engine called the Egan Matrix. Within each preset, there's 7 macros that you can use to very drastically shape and change the sound. There's an internal global effects engine with several different very nice effects, EQ, compressor, and pre-gain and post-gain. And every single thing that can be controlled within the internal synth engine for all of its 500 presets receives a MIDI CC. So here it took me about a minute to map this controller. I have all the macros, pre-gain and post-gain. This controls the effects section. And these I'm going to have to show you what they do later because it's so alien it won't make sense until I demonstrate it. So you hear this beautiful flute sound. It's very airy, it's very mellow. I'm going to crank the pre-gain. I'm going to turn the post-gain down just to be safe. So I crank the pre-gain all the way up. And once you hit a certain threshold, and this is for any of the 500 internal presets, the pre-gain starts acting as a wave folder distortion. So we had a beautiful fluty sound. And now just by blasting the pre-gain, it's gnarly. Now as a film composer, I don't often get that crazy with my sounds, but it's very useful just to use it to make things poke through the mix. So if I don't want to use too much compression, I just add some beautiful harmonics. Less work in post, it sounds nicer. Things will poke through the dialogue a little bit better. The same thing would go for production. It's just a nice way to make a sound stick out. Or very quickly turn 4 or 5 knobs, and I go from a flute sound to Demon Voices from Hell. You can go from musical to sound design like that. And pretty much every sound inside of the sound engine is very flexible like that. Another completely unique feature of the Osmose is how it handles pedals. Okay, so I'm going to press down the sustain pedal. Normal sustain functionality, I have no more dynamics. The entire keyboard is held hostage. The first big difference on Osmose is now I have 0 to 127 dynamic control with my foot. But this is not sustain. This pedal is set to sostenuto, meaning the whole keyboard is free to play. And we have 2 sostenutos on Osmose, so I can bring in a second chord. And now with just my feet, I have dynamic control over both chords, and I'm still free to play. Where it really starts to get fun for me is when I combine a lot of these techniques I just showed you. So I have the expression pedal mapped to open and close this filter. Let's grab this one with the sostenuto with my left foot. So now with my left foot, I can make the sostenuto louder and quieter. With my right foot, I can shape the whole sound with this filter. Let's use the intelligent octave switcher to switch the keyboard while maintaining this. And let's try one gesture along with what I have. It's really nice, and for a film composer, this is gold because we work with scale. The more things I can have going on in the same scene, there's some things really quiet, some things really thin, some things are really loud, some things are really big. We work in these terms so that you need a relative scale to make things sound really big. That's why orchestras are so compelling to film composers. But I was actually only using one gesture, and I'm not limited to that. So let's pull that bass note up again. I'm gonna go up another octave. Let's play like a, and there's a swept. It's a swept echo, so it filter sweeps across the delay. I'm using a bit of a medium attack in the left hand. My right hand is still free. And of course, I'm not limited to one gesture with either hand. A lot of fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed seeing some of the tips and tricks I use to dive deep into my Osmose, to get big sounds, to help me with my work, inspire me with my playing. And I also hope it inspires you guys to dig and get some of your own tips and tricks and do wonderful creative things with your Osmose. Cheers.